So, hello everyone. We are online. I think that we will wait for just several minutes. Maybe somebody else will also switch on to our webinar. So, several minutes. Okay. So, presentation is on. Okay. Hello.
We have a lot of comments.
Yes, we have hello from a lot of people.
Yeah, hi.
Indianapolis.
Good to see you all.
Indianapolis, hello. Okay, I see a lot of comments, so I think that we can start, and if somebody will join us, I think that they will understand what we are speaking about. So, hi everyone, let's get to know each other right away. Today there will be two people presenting. My name is Alexander, I am the CEO of TypeType, and this is Yulia, our art director. First of all, please excuse our English in advance. We are trying our best. Important moment, can you hear and see us well? If please comment a plus on chat if so. If there are any problems, let us know. We will try to correct them. Let's give it a few moments more to make sure everything works fine, and I will see pluses. Oh, we have a lot of guys from different countries, cities. Fantastic. Oh, Plamen.
Hi, Plamen.
Oh, I see a lot of pluses. Super. I think everything works okay. Let's go on. We work at a font Foundry that has been in the market for over 7 years, and we develop and grow rapidly. By now we have created our own functional collection of fonts, some of which have been on top of world sales ratings for a number of years, such as our favorite TT Norms Pro and TT Commons. Soon you will see TT Commons Pro. It will be a really cool font. We carry out interesting projects, and to offer insights on them, we write articles describing most interesting work cases, and you can read them on our website. Check it. We also work in new and interesting directions in the font market, and we want to develop the font world that we love so much. One of these directions is the variable fonts. We would like this presentation to be dedicated to variable fonts and to tell you what a useful and interesting instrument this is. But we will also not forget about its disadvantages and problems. This is what we will cover today. Yulia, as an art director and practicing font designer, will tell you in more detail about the history of variable fonts and their technical features. We will talk about what types of variable fonts exist and what tasks they can solve, how to use them, and what are the main use problems. We will also have a look at several real use cases of variable fonts. That is the end of our intro, and the really interesting part begins. If you have any questions, please write them in chat. We will try to answer them at the end of our webinar. So now to Yulia.
Thank you, Alexander, for your introduction.
You're welcome.
To start with, I'll give you some background and will tell you a little about the development of font technologies. In the second half of 1980s, the standards PostScript by Adobe and TypeType by Apple were introduced for font development. Both use Bezier curves to construct characters. We use these formats in the updated versions to this day when working on font files. In 1991, Adobe presented the multiple master technology as an extension of the PostScript format. It allowed to store several variants of the glyph contour in the same font file. These variants were the endpoints on a scale between which you could find intermediary values, for example, in order to change the weight or width of the letters. To use such a font, a static face had to be generated first using a special program, Adobe Type Manager. It then had to be uploaded to the system for use in a graphic editor. Due to the difficulty of use, this format has never become popular, and font designers continued to create its static faces. In 1997, Adobe and Microsoft together presented the OpenType technology. It was based on the TrueType format but allowed for a much larger number of characters to be implemented, 65,000 to be precise. Previously, the limit was 256. TrueType also allowed for OpenType features without which we cannot imagine a modern word font anymore. I'm talking here about small capital support, tabular characters, superiors, stylistic sets, contextual alternates, and so on. The OpenType format remains most popular to this day. And finally, in 2016, Adobe, Apple, Google, and Microsoft have announced the new version of the OpenType format, OpenType font variables. Since then, font designers can write the information on several faces of a font family in the same file. The key point of this format, as you can see, is similar to multiple master, but it has one crucial difference. Now static faces don't have to be generated in advance. Parameters can be set directly in the graphic editor. And now let us have a closer look at how this format is different from the classic OpenType. When a designer buys a font family, say a sans serif of 9 weights, he or she obtains 9 separate font files. These faces have been previously prepared by a font designer, and the weights were calculated such that the widths are arranged gradually from the lightest to the boldest. A variable font, on the other hand, consists of only one file, and the range of faces is limited only by the thinnest and the boldest ones. And the designer can choose on any one among them that he or she likes. If you look into a font, you'll see that each character has anchor points based on which it is constructed. If the number of these points is the same in the lightest and boldest faces, the program can connect them and calculate the midpoint positions. Font development is, of course, not as simple and straightforward, and we often have to specify more than 2 masters, but this does not affect user experience. The range between 2 end faces is called an axis. In graphic editors like Adobe, it looks like a slider that can be adjusted to choose the needed value. The first variant is the weight axis that has already been described. In most font families, there are several faces of different weights, and theoretically they all can be variable. This axis can be very useful. Let's imagine that you have bought a regular font family and plan to use it to set a book or a website with a large area of text. You know what the optimal weight of the main text should be so that it is comfortable to read. But you have a problem. The regular face in the family looks too light, and the next one, say the medium, looks too bold. A weight between regular and medium would be perfect, but it does not exist. But if you were using a variable font, you can move the slider in the editor or specify a custom value in CSS to create it. The next rather frequent axis is the width of the font. In static families, sometimes you have several width options, for example, normal, condensed, or extended. In the variable font, you can manually select the needed width between the narrowest and the broadest faces. This setting may come in handy if you are setting the text in narrow columns, which have to fit in as much text as possible. Normal width is somewhat broad for this purpose, and the narrow is inconvenient for reading large texts. A variable font would have allowed you to make the face a little narrow without compromising its readability. This option can also be used creatively. For example, if you would like to create a layout in which the width of letters depend directly on the browser window size. Unfortunately, I see we have some technical problems, but this happens. The third axis is slant. It is applicable when the characters in the slanted face are constructed the same as in the upright. Most often, this variant can be found in sans serifs. In this case, you can choose the incline angle yourself, thus regulating how different this face would look and stand out in the text. Or you might want to set a larger area of text in an inclined face, but you would like to spare the user the discomfort of reading the inclined text. In that case, you might want to decrease the angle. In fonts where the character construction changes with the italics, this axis can also be implemented, but it rather functions as an inbuilt switch from the upright to italics. And finally, an axis that is less widely spread, but which is also included into OTF-var format, the optical size axis. You might have seen display and text subfamilies in fonts. The first usually stands out due to its higher contrast, more detail, and narrow spacing. Display faces are used in titles, posters, and other cases where a large text size is needed. The text subfamily, on the contrary, has low contrast, fewer details, and may be broader. Overall, it is better readable in smaller sizes and large texts. In a variable font, you can generate an intermediary variant, which will still be well readable in small sizes, but more refined than a simple text face. This variant would be ideal in small titles, for example.
One moment, Julia. This all very interesting things you tell us, and it will be even better later. Please write your comments and questions in the chat. We are doing this for you, so we really care about your feedback. So, Julia, come on.
Thank you, thank you. I have talked about the axes that were implemented by the format developers. Specific names have been developed for them. You can see them on this slide. But font designers can invent and implement their own axes as well. You can find completed examples where the following parameters change: serif lengths, height of lowercase and uppercase characters, height of ascenders and descenders, contrast, and so on. A font, of course, can be changed decoratively. Only the author's imagination is the limit here. Imagine now that one axis can provide you with 1,000 options of font faces. If you have two axes, there are now 1,000,000 options, and now when you have custom axes, the font options become endless. To sum up, almost any typographic task can be solved with the use of variable fonts. And now, back to Alexander.
Thank you, Yulia. Now I will try to tell you about several problems we encounter when using variable fonts and several interesting ways to use them. It should also be noted that the variable font technology, as Yulia said, has existed for many years now. However, even if font editors are developing and it is easier to create variable fonts, they haven't become popular or widely used. The biggest problem is that you cannot use them in a lot of apps you see on the screen, and most importantly, not all graphic editors support use of variable fonts, as you see on the screen. Now, not all browsers support and not all design apps can work with them. For example, let's look at Adobe After Effects. All our animations, including the animation of variable fonts you see in this presentation, we create using this software. Ironically, at the moment, Adobe After Effects doesn't yet support variable fonts. So that is why we have to resort to traditional layered animation, foregoing the advantages of variable fonts. Also, video apps and Office apps are also not all capable of working with them. But there is also good news. Literally several months ago, it has become possible to use variable fonts in Sketch. Hurrah! The greatest disadvantage of variable fonts is the low quality. Most variable fonts are of mediocre quality, and so when in use, they may act up at the worst moment. As we see in the example, everything is fine and 2/3 of the font, and then some goes wrong. Everything works okay, then goes wrong. And when a variable font is used, for instance, on a website, and it changes as you scroll, it's clear that at some point an ugly glyph will appear. You will have problems with your website. So here is a rather theoretical example. Let's imagine you have a website that loads 1,000,000 times a day. If you use the full TT Norms Pro family with all it faces, it takes up something like 5,000 kilobytes on your page. If you're using its variable version, it only takes something like 2,000 kilobytes. With such a huge number of loads per day, the total difference is more than 3,000 gigabytes that need to be downloaded from the server. It's clear that it is not that much of a difference in each individual load case, but in the whole sum, it matters. This case is of course very illustrative for such areas as social media, email services, and so on. Next slide. We also should know that the overwhelming majority of variable fonts is not hinted. It is a difficult process that needs to be learned. We have spent a lot of time on understanding it, and we did it. All our variable fonts are hinted. Hence, variable fonts are not always correctly displayed in small sizes. Okay, now back to Yulia again. She will talk about using fonts.
Okay, let's get into action. I will now tell you how to use variable fonts in your work in most popular apps. Let us first have a look at Adobe Illustrator. Let's imagine you have typed some text and would like to choose a variable font for it, which you have already installed in your system. Such fonts have a special note bar next to them in a graphic editor in the list of all fonts. By the way, Adobe has its own variable fonts which are included into the latest software versions, so you can experiment with those. Once you have selected a variable font, an additional button variable font appears in the character panel. Behind it, hide all variable access a font has, and you can change their parameters with sliders. You will see the results of your manipulations right away. All other settings in this panel remain the same. You can also choose one of the faces from the list and use the family as a normal static one. The principle is absolutely the same in Sketch, except that variable fonts have no special mark next to them. Variable fonts can also be implemented on the web with the help of CSS. I won't go into detail now, since it's rather difficult to cover everything in sufficient detail during this lecture, of course. However, our partner and a professional web designer provided some examples. Here you can see that changing the properties of variable fonts is available with CSS transitions. This demo shows support of CSS animation.
So there are some problems.
Yes,
It's just something with, I think, video to YouTube.
Well, I think it's
okay.
It's okay, yes. And here is also an example of how it is possible to animate each letter separately. Its use only depends on the designer's imagination. At the end of the lecture, we will share these links with examples in the chat. You can read more about using variable fonts on the web in Richard Ruther's articles on Medium. Get started with variable fonts as a quick but content-rich introduction, and how to use variable fonts in the real world as a descriptions of problems that can be encountered and how to solve them. We will post the links on the comment section after the talk as well. But enough with the technical information for now. I invite you to have a look at creative examples of variable fonts use. For instance, you can stretch the text depending on the container borders and even do it in augmented reality. Actually, there are several interesting attempts of variable fonts use in augmented reality. You can read about them in the article Breaking Boxes, Typography and Augmented Reality. We will send you the link after the webinar. For example, the font can change depending on the distance from which we look at it. Or you can also set the saturation of the font depending on the reading conditions, like lighting in this case. As you can see, the font gets bolder when the light goes down. Or you can even make a step further and create a moving illustrations from the font, as suggested by the Access Praxis website. Or you can also make them in different colors by overlaying several letters one over the other, as you can see in Toshi Omagari experimentation. But this is of course beyond the font's primary use. And now I would like to suggest several resources where you can try working with variable fonts. You will find the links in the comments after the webinar. First, this is accesspraxis.org, which features a large collection of variable fonts. You can also upload there the fonts you have and experiment with them. Second, there is also vfonts.com, where you can try different fonts in a simpler view. And finally, a great site which we use in our work when testing variable fonts, dynamodarkroom.com by the Dynamo Foundry. There you can test both variable access and OpenType features, and even generate and download static fonts with preset parameters. But this is it from my side. Thank you for your attention, Alexander.
Yes, so variable fonts have a chance of becoming an integral part of the font world. There has been much talk about them in recent years, but they have not yet become crazily widespread. For now, they have become an instrument for solving a number of narrow tasks. But little by little, more and more graphic and video editors start supporting variable fonts. So it's only a matter of time for variable fonts to take over the world, how I think. We see a lot of questions, and it is fantastic that you write them, and we will answer for all of them, but I think in for most of them in chat, because we were
we don't have enough time for all of them.
We didn't think that there will be so many questions. I see some interesting questions, for example, about customization. For example, I love font customization, and I think that this instrument really very cool and solve a lot of problems for designers, and sometimes it's not so hard and it's not so expensive to make customization. And I see that you ask about one moment. I will try to find this question.
Too many comments.
Price depends on the task, and I think that the most good variant, if you, for example, write some example, what do you want, and we will answer for this question about price.
So, okay, let's take the last one. How difficult is to create a variable font compared to regular fonts, for example? It's an interesting question. If we are talking about a normal family, say TT Norms Pro or TT Commons, just a simple sans serif, for example, where we have weight or width axis, it's not that difficult. Actually, when we draw these families, we use multiple master technology that I was talking about a bit earlier. We use it to make this process of creating a font easier and faster. So we create just several masters and interpolate them to achieve more faces. But of course, when we are planning to make a variable font, we need to pay some extra attention on details to make sure that the face, this font look good in all intermediary positions. And of course, we need some special hinting for variable fonts to be done. But if we are talking about more creative examples of variable fonts like TT Aliens that you can find in our collection, where the whole graphics change between masters, then it is quite difficult to make them compatible as a technical side of this question. And of course, we have to look at how nice they changing when transition from master to master. And of course, the idea itself is not trivial, so even to think it up is not that easy. So it completely depends on the idea of the font.
Okay, there are Good questions, and we will answer for them in chat, I think, because something we can't answer now. We can answer for something like questions about will we do variable fonts to our older font families. For some of them, yes, we will, because some of them we will make something like pro versions, and now we make variable fonts to I think 90% of all our new font families. About hinting, you ask, can you say more about the problems with hinting? It's second I love everything about hinting, and there is only one problem. Most of all fonts they don't have hinting, and in different situations when your font is little, you just can't read it. And in variable fonts, it is really hard to make hinting. Another way how to do it, and I think that we can show maybe in some other webinars how we do it, because for example I want to say that we have article about hinting, and you can find it on our site, and you can read about hinting. It is a really big article about how we hint some all our fonts, and you will find the information about hinting in different cases. About when you will see TT4s soon.
Very soon.
Very soon. Oh, thank you for a lot of questions. I just
it's great that we have so many attention.
Yes, we are very glad that so many people see us and look for us, and that there are a lot of questions, and I just can't understand all of them. I will have to use some Google Translate in some situations. I think that we will answer for them in chat during today, tomorrow, and so you have so interesting and good questions. For example, last one: are there success stories to check where the corporate customized fonts we have, but if I will speak about this now, I will, with my not very good English, I will not be able to show everything what we did. And yes, we have, and you just answer with this question for my another question, because I wanted to say that we will also try to host similar events once every, I think, 2 months, something like this. And we are welcome. You are welcome to let us know what topics are of interest to you. This will help us choose the next one. And for example, this question about customized font for commercial projects, corporations, we made a font for social network. Vkontakte. It is the biggest social network in Russia, and it was really interesting case how we did it. And
yeah, it's a whole new big topic, font customization and customized fonts. I think it's maybe the topic of our next webinar.
To tell the truth, I really want to make next webinar about customizations, because one more time, I think that this instrument can solve a lot of different problems or tasks designers or design companies have to solve when they work with their customers. And customization is a cool way to work. with fonts. So I think that it can be the next topic. So thank you everyone for watching our presentation. One more time we will answer for all questions. Yulia, thank you for your great presentation.
Thank you, Alexander. You
Yes.
were great as well.
We will announce our next event in our social media. We will be very glad to see you next time. Bye everyone. Thank you very much. It was cool. Bye bye.
Bye bye.